Welcome back to Peaceful Soul, where we explore the most delicate corners of the human spirit and the science behind our emotions. Today, we begin a special journey, a journey into the world of grief and the way it imprints itself on both the brain and the heart. Grief is not only about tears falling, it is a full-body experience that affects our mind, our body, and even the way we see the world. Have you ever woken up one morning and realized the world has changed? Everything around you is still the same, the familiar walls, the chair in the living room, the lingering smell of coffee, yet there is an emptiness that nothing can fill. Perhaps it was the loss of a parent, a life partner, or a close friend who had walked beside you for many years. That loss makes even the smallest, most ordinary moments feel like sharp cuts deep into memory. Science shows us that grief is not just an emotion. When we lose someone we love, the brain regions connected to attachment and reward fall into a void. The brain reacts intensely. You may suffer from sleepless nights, constant anxiety, depression, or even notice your memory and focus declining. Studies have even found that prolonged grief can increase the risk of heart disease, leaving the body physically exhausted, not just emotionally wounded. Imagine Laura, a 48-year-old American woman, mother of 2 young children. Her husband, Mark, died suddenly from a heart attack. Laura's life changed overnight. Every morning, they used to drink coffee together, talking about the kids' school schedule. Now, the chair at the breakfast table is nothing but a cold, empty space. For Laura, the hardest part wasn't the funeral, but the tiny details. Her husband's shoes still by the door, their favorite song unexpectedly playing in the supermarket. Each one felt like a knife twisting in her heart. Laura's story is far from unique. Millions of people around the world face similar losses every year. What they all share is that grief doesn't just appear on the first day, it lingers for weeks, months, even years. And the biggest question remains: how do you go on living without being consumed by sorrow? How can the memory of someone lost become a source of strength rather than a burden? People often say, time heals all wounds, but the truth is more complicated. Time helps us get used to the emptiness, but it doesn't truly soothe the wound. Healing requires something active, facing the pain, working with both the mind and the body, and making peace with the unfinished memories. That is why some people still choke up even after 10 years, while others find peace within a few months. The difference lies in how we learn to live alongside grief. If it is not released, grief can transform. A man who loses his wife may become angry, easily snapping at his children. A mother who loses a child may fall into a spiral of self-blame, darkening her spirit day by day. Some try to fill the void with work, alcohol, or cigarettes, but like a hidden wound that continues to bleed inside, grief will keep seeping into relationships, health, and the future, unless we learn how to heal. So, what is the path to both honoring grief and not letting it destroy life? The answer lies in combining neuroscience, psychology, and the wisdom of lived experience. In the next part, we'll explore practical tools that help the brain adapt, the body recover, and the heart find a new relationship with memory. Grief is not a life sentence, it can become a new form of energy, if only you learn how to live with it. Earlier, we looked directly into the pain of loss and realized that grief is not just a fleeting emotion, but something that leaves a deep imprint on both the brain and the body. Today, we're going to explore more deeply the ways science and psychology suggest we can move through sorrow, not by forgetting, but by learning how to live with it. This is the key difference. Healing doesn't mean erasing, it means building a new relationship with grief. One of the most important steps in this process is allowing yourself to truly feel. Too many people believe they must be strong, that they must hold back tears. But science has proven that suppressing emotions only puts more pressure on the brain, increasing the risk of anxiety or depression. When you cry, your body is actually releasing stress hormones. When you dare to admit, "I am grieving," the brain activates its self-regulation system, preventing you from being pulled too deeply into emotional chaos. Take David, for example, a software engineer in Texas who lost his mother to cancer. During the funeral, he tried to stay calm and hold everything together for the family. But months later, David began suffering from insomnia, irritability, and a loss of interest in his work. It was only when he joined a support group for people experiencing grief, where he could finally speak his pain out loud, that his condition began to improve. David's story is proof that sharing and acknowledging emotions doesn't make us weaker, it actually helps us rediscover our strength. Beyond emotions, biology also plays a crucial role. Insomnia is one of the most common consequences of grief. In the state of loss, the brain activates the amygdala, the emotional processing center, making it difficult to relax and pushing you into cycles of negative nighttime thoughts. Researchers recommend maintaining a consistent sleep routine, avoiding screens before bedtime, and practicing deep breathing exercises. These habits can help the body restore its circadian rhythm. When sleep is repaired, the brain finally has a chance to heal and recover from emotional trauma. Nutrition is another medicine often overlooked. Grief disrupts appetite in unpredictable ways. Some people eat excessively for comfort, while others lose all desire for food. However, a diet rich in omega-3s from salmon, walnuts, and antioxidant-packed greens supports the brain by reducing inflammation and improving mood. Neuroscience shows that serotonin, the neurotransmitter that promotes happiness, is produced more effectively when you maintain a healthy diet. In other words, each meal not only nourishes the body, but also feeds the soul. Another element we cannot ignore is social connection. Grief tends to pull us into isolation, making us withdraw from friends, family, and the activities we once loved. Yet research reveals that the presence of a loved one, a friend, or even a support group can calm the overactive stress circuits in the brain. Remember this: prolonged loneliness is more dangerous to health than smoking. So instead of rejecting help, consider it an essential part of healing. Finally, patience with yourself is the core of this journey. No two healing paths are the same. Some may move forward within months, while others may take years. Rather than forcing yourself to just get over it, allow yourself to take small steps. Today, you take a walk outside. Tomorrow, you revisit an old hobby. Little by little, you'll realize you've traveled much further than you ever thought possible. Healing is a slow journey, but every step matters. In the next part, we will explore something even deeper: how to transform grief into strength, and how to let the memory of the one you lost become a source of encouragement rather than a burden. This is where science meets the spirit, where you learn how to build a new life without losing the love that shaped you. We have just looked directly at the pain of loss and understood that healing is not about erasing, but about learning how to live with those emotions. Now, we will go deeper into a particularly important aspect: how to transform grief into strength. This is not just a life philosophy, but something that science and psychology have proven, that people can grow and develop after experiences that once seemed devastating. Psychologists call this phenomenon post-traumatic growth. Instead of being crushed by sorrow, many people discover new meaning, new purpose, and even a stronger version of themselves after loss. Research shows that those who go through this process often gain a deeper appreciation for life, form stronger bonds with loved ones, and find profound value in the seemingly ordinary moments of daily living. In a way, grief becomes a catalyst for growth. Take Emily, a nurse in New York, as an example. After losing her husband to cancer, Emily fell into depression and spent months in isolation. But instead of continuing to shut herself off from the world, she began joining a support group for patients and families, sharing her story to help others. Emily says the love her husband left behind now flows through every act of kindness she offers to patients and the community. This is what transformed her loss into a new source of strength. Neuroscience explains that when we find meaning in sorrow, the brain begins to rewire how it responds to memories. Instead of linking loss only to pain, the brain creates new connections, where memories of the loved one are associated with gratitude, love, or motivation to act. This doesn't make grief disappear, but it turns it into a valuable part of life's journey. In other words, memories no longer remain wounds, but become energy to move forward. A practical way to begin this process is to journal or write down the positive things your loved one left in your life. It could be a lesson, a habit, or even a meaningful phrase. When you turn memories into actions, such as planting a memorial garden, engaging in charity work, or simply choosing to live with more kindness each day, you are transforming grief into strength. These actions activate the brain's reward system while reducing the overactivity of the amygdala, the brain's center for fear and distress. What matters most is that you don't need to do something grand. Strength is built through small but consistent changes. Each time you choose love over withdrawal, or sharing over silence, you are rebuilding yourself from the very foundation of your grief. And those small steps, little by little, become a lasting source of strength that helps you stand firmer against future storms. When we talk about loss, many people are afraid that if they stop grieving, they'll somehow forget the loved one who has passed away. But the truth is, memories don't just disappear. What changes is the way we carry them in our hearts. And that's what shapes the emotions attached to them. Science shows that our brains have the ability to reframe, meaning the same memory can be linked to gratitude instead of only to pain. This is what allows us to keep a healthy, lasting connection with those we've lost. Think about Daniel, a high school teacher in California. After his mom passed away, he was terrified he'd forget the sound of her voice or the warmth of her smile. At first, every memory only reminded him of the emptiness, and he found himself breaking down in tears in the middle of class. But over time, Daniel started recording the stories his mom used to tell, journaling about family dinners, and noting the little habits she left behind. A few months later, he noticed something had shifted. The memories didn't choke him up anymore. Instead, they brought him a sense of warmth. Those memories turned into a source of strength, inspiring him to teach with more patience and compassion. Researchers call this a continuing bond. Instead of closing the door on the past, people can carry on their relationship with someone who has passed by holding on to memories in a new way. It might be cooking their favorite meal, walking the path you used to share, or simply talking to them in quiet moments. These actions help the brain create positive neural connections, softening the weight of loss and nurturing a sense of companionship. Here's the fascinating part. When memories are tied to positive actions, the brain activates the prefrontal cortex, the part linked to emotional regulation and decision-making. That means instead of being dragged down by painful memories, you're actively using them to shape a stronger, more compassionate version of yourself. Neuroscience shows that the more memories are connected with positive experiences, the more they become a resource instead of a burden. And you don't have to start big. It can be as simple as hanging a photo where you see it every day, or keeping a small item that reminds you of your loved one. Each time you look at it, let it remind you not just of loss, but of love, care, and the goodness that person brought into your life. When memories become motivation, they no longer break you down, they become the light that guides you forward. One of the most important keys to healing grief is connection. Human beings were never meant to carry loss alone. Psychological research shows that when we share our pain with others, especially within a community that truly understands, the brain releases oxytocin, a hormone that lowers stress and increases feelings of bonding. In other words, being heard and accompanied can soften the loneliness that so often comes with grief. Take Linda, a mother from Texas who lost her son in a car accident. For the first few months, she hardly spoke to anyone, feeling as if the entire world had lost its meaning. But when a friend invited her to join a support group for parents who had lost children, Linda slowly began to open up. Within that circle, she listened to stories just like her own, and she cried alongside people who deeply understood that kind of pain. Linda said that, for the first time in months, she no longer felt completely alone. The community gave her strength to keep going. From a neuroscience perspective, connecting with others activates the parts of the brain linked to safety and reward. This reduces the overactivity of the amygdala, the region tied to fear and distress. At the same time, serotonin and dopamine are released, bringing a sense of hope and motivation. That's why people who join support groups or maintain close social ties often recover from loss more quickly and more healthily. It's important to remember that connection doesn't always have to come from a large group. Sometimes, it only takes one close friend, a family member, or even a coworker who truly listens to make a huge difference. Speaking your grief out loud, rather than keeping it bottled up, helps the brain relieve stress and reshape how it processes memories. This is the first step in transforming loneliness into companionship. You can start by finding a safe space to share, whether it's an online group, a small gathering, or simply a conversation with someone you trust. Remember, you don't have to be strong by staying silent. True strength comes from allowing others into your inner world, lifting one another up through the weight of sorrow. When a loved one passes away, the routines we once shared with them often leave behind a deep emptiness. One of the most effective ways to heal is by creating new rituals or habits, both to honor their memory and to carry love forward. Psychologists call this rituals of meaning. These are intentional acts that signal to the brain that the bond still exists, just in a different form. And that brings us peace. Because the pain is no longer a final ending, it's transformed into part of our present life. Take Robert, an engineer living in New York, who had just lost his father, a man he deeply admired. Every Sunday morning, his father used to sit on the balcony with a cup of coffee and the newspaper. After his father's passing, Robert decided to keep that ritual alive. He brewed coffee, picked up the paper, sat in his dad's old chair, and spent a few quiet minutes remembering him. Sometimes, he even wrote down his thoughts as if writing letters to his father. At first, the ritual brought him to tears. But over time, it became a peaceful moment that helped him feel his father was still there, walking beside him in spirit. Neuroscience shows that rituals can calm the nervous system, because they bring a sense of predictability and control, two things that loss often takes away from us. By repeating a meaningful action, the brain forms new connections, reshaping painful memories into more positive experiences. That's why small rituals, like lighting a candle, journaling, or walking through a place tied to your loved one, can have such a powerful healing effect. A ritual doesn't need to be complicated or formal. It can be as simple as listening to a song you both loved, cooking a dish connected to them, or planting a tree that you nurture every day. What matters is not the action itself, but the meaning you attach to it. Each time you repeat it, you're telling yourself that love continues, it has simply taken on a new form. Maintaining these rituals also helps the brain link memories with comfort instead of sorrow. Rather than letting memories pull you back into grief, you transform them into a positive part of daily life. Over time, this not only brings greater peace, but also turns the memory of your loved one into a source of motivation, fueling the strength you need to keep moving forward. In the end, one of the most important steps in the healing journey is rediscovering meaning and purpose after loss. When someone we love is gone, many of us feel as if life has lost its direction, that nothing matters anymore. This is a natural response of the brain when facing such a profound change. Yet within that pain also lies an opportunity, the chance to rediscover ourselves and to clarify what truly matters. Finding new meaning doesn't replace the presence of the one we lost, but it helps us continue living with love and memories of them. Take Emily, a high school teacher in California. After her husband passed away from cancer, she sank into despair, unable to find the strength to stand in front of her students. But one day, while watching her class study diligently, she remembered how her husband had always encouraged her to keep planting seeds of knowledge. From that moment, Emily decided to transform teaching into her new mission, not only to live fully with her passion, but also to keep a promise to her husband. She even established a small scholarship fund in his name, giving struggling students the chance to continue their education. This not only gave Emily a reason to wake up each morning, but also transformed her pain into meaningful action. Neuroscientists explain that when we discover a sense of purpose, the brain regions tied to motivation and resilience become activated. This rebuilds hope while quieting the brain's stress centers. Purpose becomes like an inner compass, guiding us and reminding us that, even though loss is inevitable, life is still worth living. Rediscovering purpose doesn't have to mean starting a foundation or changing your career. It can be as simple as tending a garden, caring for a pet, volunteering in your community, or picking up a hobby you once set aside. What matters is having a reason each day to move forward, something that stirs your heart and reminds you that love still lives on through your actions. After all, healing is not about forgetting. It's about learning to live fully while carrying both memory and pain within you. Loss changes us, but it can also open the door to a new path, one where we live with greater compassion, deeper gratitude, and a clearer sense of the value of each moment. And it's in that place where we can find true peace again. If you've stayed with me this far, perhaps you've felt it too, that the healing journey isn't just about overcoming pain. but about rediscovering peace and meaning in life. If this message brought you even a little comfort or inspiration, don't forget to hit like, so I know you're here with me. Subscribe to Peaceful Soul so you won't miss the next video on mental wellness and the art of peaceful living. And if you believe this video could help someone you know, please share it, because sometimes, even a small message is enough to bring light to someone's entire day.